Our story begins during the invasion of Coruscant as the Separatists have invaded the Republic's capital. They are trying to get Chancellor Palpatine, and so Jedi Masters Shaak Ti and Stas Ali are ushering the Supreme Chancellor out of his office and down to meet Mace Windu in a Republic transport at the bottom of 500 Republica. Strangely to the Jedi, Palpatine seemed to be extremely calm and just going through the motions. There was truly no panic in him. But the Jedi didn't have time to think about that, as moments later, the hallway that the Jedi and Chancellor were running through erupted into an explosion. They were all blown backwards, lights flickering, security alarms blaring, as Shaak Ti looked outside of the blown-up hall to see the personal starship of General Grievous, and a transport full of his Magna Guards. As Shaak Ti stumbled to get back up, feeling a searing pain across many parts of her body, she heard the scream of Stas Ali as Grievous cut her down for good. The smoke was hiding him well, but Shaak Ti could see his lightsabers and hear his echoing laugh. She found the Chancellor and turned to run, but suddenly a mechanical hand was plunged deep into her back, breaking her spine, and Shaak Ti fell to the ground, paralyzed. From here she could only watch as Grievous grabbed Palpatine, lifting him off the ground. Palpatine seemed again to not panic, but Grievous pulled out a communicator, and the hologram of Dooku appeared. Grievous said he has the Chancellor, and with a small smile, Dooku said, "Good, General, good. Kill him. Kill him now." And for a split second, Palpatine was frozen. He could only wonder if this was some sort of the plan to trick the Jedi, but before he could think any longer and even react, two lightsabers from Grievous stabbed into Palpatine's heart and skull. He died in a blink, and Grievous threw his lifeless body out of the broken hallway, down to the streets of Coruscant. With a laugh, he grabbed Shaak Ti's lightsaber, looking down at her and telling her to tell the Republic of what occurred here today as he leapt back into his starfighter. As he left, Mace Windu and Kit Fisto arrived to find Shaak Ti, motionless but alive on the floor. Grievous killed Stas Ali and the other guards, and Palpatine was missing. But Shaak Ti looked up, and in her final breaths, she told the Jedi that Palpatine was dead. Now on the invisible hand, Dooku listened in as Grievous killed Palpatine, making him the Sith Lord of the galaxy. Throughout the last many years, Dooku had admired his master's handiwork in bringing down the Republic. It was magnificent, and Dooku truly couldn't have done this himself. Could he have created the droid army and taken the Republic down by force? Sure, but that would only lead to endless war and suffering. In the end, Dooku truly did want peace with himself as ruler. Palpatine did an excellent job of bringing down morale across the Republic, making the citizens hate the Jedi, and now he would be able to step in and take over. He had planned for this day. He had many plans from here on out. He was thankful for Sidious, but his time had come. It was, after all, the way of the Sith. Count Dooku, Darth Tyrannus, would sit in his seat overlooking the battle above Coruscant. He was truly once a great Jedi Master, but he eventually found the truth. It was the Jedi that stood in the way of peace and prosperity for the citizens. The Jedi are lapdogs for the Senate, protecting those in power with money. He saw that political power was simply for sale to the highest bidder in the Republic, and Dooku couldn't stand it. So he took his place with the Sith, biding his time to someday bring peace back to the citizens. As a young Jedi, he first saw this corruption when a senator's son was abducted, Senator Dagonet, and Dooku saw how the people suffered on the planet, while the senator bled the planet dry for his own wealth. Dooku nearly killed the senator that day, but the restraints of the Jedi did not allow it. For many years, Dooku battled with himself, but eventually the Dark Lord, Lord Sidious, gave him the opportunity he needed, and now he truly would eradicate the corruption from the galaxy. The true evil he now knew lies within the Senate. He could take Coruscant now if he so wanted, but that was not his plan. Instead, with Palpatine dead, he ordered a full retreat for his forces. And as the Separatists cleared out of Coruscant, the Jedi and Senate were left in shock. Dooku was leaving them for now, to fester in their own shock, to turn against each other in some ways, and in time they would choose to surrender, rather than being forced to surrender. The Senate, the Jedi, failed to protect the Chancellor, but there was one question lingering in the back of everyone's mind. How did Grievous know the exact room that Palpatine was in? How did he even know what building Palpatine was in? It made no sense, unless the Separatists had someone on the inside, someone close to Palpatine, feeding them information. And after some recovery time, the Senate would gather with the Jedi Council in attendance. They were in complete disarray without their strong leader Palpatine, and eventually Anakin and Obi-Wan recovered Palpatine's body from the streets of Coruscant. It was broken and mangled, but it was him. There was many questions, and as everyone gathered and tried to discuss the next steps in the war, a giant hologram soon appeared in the middle of it all. It was Dooku himself. Angry yells and curses filled the air from the Senate as Dooku stood with a small smile, waiting for everyone to calm down. When the air finally was silent enough, Dooku began to speak, telling the senators that they have two options: accept a full surrender to him and the CIS, or lose Kamino and the clones today. The Republic, led partly by Mace Windu, said that they would not be surrendering to Dooku's tyranny, also saying that Kamino was extremely fortified and it would not fall easily. Dooku sighed, saying, "So be it," before the hologram switched to show the Kaminoan facilities. The Jedi knew that Dooku had some involvement with Kamino, but they truly didn't know how much. Dooku had quietly implemented bombs underneath the facilities with aqua droids. The Kaminoans had trusted him, and that was their undoing, as the Senate now watched as the legs of the facilities began to explode and fall into the water below. The Jedi were frustrated with themselves now. They could have done more. They knew Dooku was heavily involved with Kamino, but they feared that telling the citizens about this would have disrupted the war effort. Now, as they watched Kamino fall, they feared what they had done. It started with just one building, then another, then a third. Tens of thousands of clones, along with billions of dollars of equipment, was slowly vanishing, and a huge Separatist fleet soon emerged to take down the Republic fleet. As the Senate watched helplessly, Bail Organa stepped in and told Dooku to stop. They will discuss a surrender. The bombs stopped, but Dooku said that the battle above Kamino would continue, while the Senate discussed. And so the Senate would discuss a surrender, but unfortunately Bail Organa severely underestimated the greed and ego of many of these senators. When it was put to a vote, it was barely a majority to continue the war, but it was a majority nonetheless. The war would continue. While it made little sense to continue, the corrupt senators knew that war brought them money, and they truly didn't care about the clones. This was unfortunate, but Dooku said it was expected. The remaining facilities on Kamino would be destroyed before Republic reinforcements could arrive, and Dooku said they would talk again soon. Over the next few weeks, the Republic would try to retaliate hard. Although the Jedi Order could see things were going poorly, they were still the generals of the war effort. They would continue to fight. The Senate would have them take the war back to the Separatists, taking the fight to planets like Cato Nemoidia, Monolist, Skako, Geonosis, homeworlds of Separatist leaders. And all these fights were just back and forth. The Republic was not winning, they were not losing, but the Separatists were gathering elsewhere. While the Republic was doing this, losing more clones and Jedi every day, Dooku was letting them attack. They were losing forces with no reinforcements on the way without Kamino, and Dooku still had a plan. For the entire war, he'd been getting information from the leader of the Republic. And now that he was gone, Dooku had free reign to do what was necessary. And so after these weeks of battles, Dooku gathered his forces and launched many fleets through the Nexus route. This was a route that led directly to some of the most important worlds for both the Republic and Separatists, and the Republic was under the influence that only Palpatine had access to these coordinates, directly from Master Peel and Director Tarkin. Of course, anything Palpatine had, Dooku also had. So Dooku launched attacks on the shipyards of Kuat, destroying facilities that built the Republic Star Destroyers. He also attacked Thifera, which produced massive, necessary medical supplies, including Bacta, and lastly he attacked Borleus, an important recovery world for the Republic. Dooku and the Separatists easily overtook these planets, as the Republic was under the impression that these routes were exclusive to the Republic, so they did not have heavy defenses ready. And once the Republic lost its ability to make clones, Star Destroyers, Bacta, other necessary supplies, Dooku once again launched his fleet to Coruscant, but he did not attack. Instead, he called to the Senate once more, telling them to surrender. During this time, he also had assassins kill anyone that was super close to Palpatine, including Masamida and Sly Moore, so they could not interfere. The Senate would instead demand to know how Dooku had access to so much Republic information, and Dooku chuckled, saying he thought they would have figured it out by now. When no one spoke, Dooku revealed the truth, but he began to twist it in his own way. He told the Senate that throughout the war, he was simply paying Palpatine for crucial information. The Senate gasped, saying this could not possibly be true, but Dooku asked how else he would know everything that he needed. And Dooku went on a monologue of sorts, explaining why he once left the Jedi and the Republic. The corruption ran to the core, and he worked with the leader of the Republic to prove this. As Dooku went on, the entire Senate completely lost its morale. The Republic was defeated, Dooku had all of the answers, and so they surrendered, knowing that this was a meaningless war where their leader throughout it was simply being paid off by the Separatist leader. They saw corruption ran to the top. They saw they would not win, and over time, the Republic Senate and Separatist Senate would meet and discuss the terms of surrender, and a new Chancellor would be announced. Chancellor Dooku, leading this new Republic. Upon surrender, the Jedi would begin to feel lost, confused, wondering where everything went wrong for them. The Order was reduced to about 7,000 members of the 10,000 that started the war, and more than half that remained were not even suited to be fighting in war. They fought and lost a war they knew to be destined to fail from the start. The next few weeks with Dooku settling in as the new galactic leader would be full of stress in the Jedi Order. Around 200 members would choose to leave the Order, seeing it to be corrupt like the Senate, and the Council would debate leaving Coruscant. During these debates, though, Dooku called into the temple for the first time. Since his takeover, Dooku declined to speak with the Jedi at all, saying that he was simply too busy with his own politics in establishing true peace. But today, Dooku told the Jedi that there were senators scattered throughout Coruscant underworld being held captive by criminal gangs who seemed to be upset with the senators' corruption. Dooku asked the Jedi to handle this, and afterward they can discuss the roles of the Jedi in this new republic. Dooku was giving the Jedi a chance. They could either go rescue the senators that were corrupt and prove to Dooku that the Jedi were not worth keeping around, or they could decline and prove to Dooku that they truly were seeing that this Senate that they were serving was not right. The Jedi, of course, would respond, and 10 groups of 2 were sent out into the Coruscant underworld to rescue these senators from the people of the galaxy. They saw themselves as peacekeepers, thinking that they had to rescue the senators, and they would do their duty to rescue the senators. What they did not know now was that they were walking right into traps set by Dooku himself. Soon after taking over the Republic, Dooku anonymously hired many bounty hunters to capture these senators, and upon seeing the Jedi arrive, they were supposed to kill the senators. Dooku would then frame the Jedi for these murders, and now that he has direct control of the Grand Army, he would be able to execute the Jedi. And because the Jedi were still blinded by their loyalty to the senators, this plan worked. They would set off in groups and find the senators, but upon finding them, the bounty hunters would kill the senators and yell out to those nearby, screaming, "The Jedi killed the senator!" This would happen all across Coruscant. The Jedi were being framed, and the citizens believed it, as the Jedi were the commanders of the corrupt war. Many hated the Jedi at this point, thinking they were in on it all. In one of these instances, though, Anakin and Obi-Wan traveled together to the location where Padme and Bail Organa were being held. Upon arrival, both senators were suddenly lifted into the air with the Force, choking, as Dooku stepped out from the shadows. Dooku did not kill them right here, but he told the 2 Jedi to listen or die. He told Kenobi and Skywalker that in mere hours, the Jedi Order would be wiped out, but in time a new order would rise, a Sith Order perhaps. And Dooku said he wants the disciples of him and Qui-Gon to be at the forefront of it all, Anakin and Obi-Wan. Truthfully, Anakin and Obi-Wan both had their doubts of the Jedi and Republic. They were on the front lines of some of the most important battles, only to learn it was all for nothing. They didn't trust the Jedi, but they also didn't trust Dooku. Obi-Wan ignited his lightsaber, it was all he knew, but Anakin asked him to stand down. He would not lose Padme for a Jedi Order that he did not trust. And Dooku once again asked Obi-Wan to see who he was fighting for. Dooku said he was no longer the enemy, that Obi-Wan is fighting ghosts of the past, and he asked Obi-Wan to let go, leave the Order behind. There will always be a spot for him in the coming government. Anakin put a hand on Obi-Wan's shoulder. telling him the fight truly is over, to come with him and Padme. And Obi-Wan listened. Dooku was right. The Jedi lost, and now he must accept that. And so Dooku let them leave, as this was sort of his way of proving to himself that he had not become the very thing he swore to destroy. Padme and Bail were good senators, and so Dooku gave them a chance, while the ones killed across Coruscant were the ones he deemed to be corrupt. Bail, Padme, Anakin, and Obi-Wan would leave here together, and while in space, Obi-Wan would say that they must warn the Jedi of what Dooku said. Bail agreed, saying they will find a way. But soon enough, an emergency broadcast across all Republic channels was announced. It was Dooku, and he spoke, saying that he has been informed that the Jedi are killing senators, trying to take over for themselves. So he has no choice. And as direct commander of the Grand Army, he orders the clones to execute Order 66. No one knew what this meant, except for the clones, and Dooku didn't hold back. The Jedi Temple was quickly bombarded from the air from 10 Star Destroyers, killing every council member and every Jedi on Coruscant. And across the galaxy, Jedi were hunted down, wiped out mercilessly. On Naboo, Anakin and Obi-Wan would have to live with the guilt of not warning the Jedi in time, while Padme and Bail would leave for the Senate. From here, Dooku would be granted more executive power to make sure the Jedi were eradicated, and with this power, he would first show that the war truly was over, shutting down all battle droids. He would then organize a meeting with every single senator of the Republic. Over time, Dooku would determine himself whether or not the senator was fit to remain in their seat, or if their corruption deemed that they be replaced. Those that were replaced, well over half of the senators of the galaxy, were publicly executed by the clone troopers. Dooku was showing the galaxy that corruption had no place in his new republic, with him having the power to remove any senator at any time. Dooku was brutal to them, but there would never be any rebellion, as the citizens of the galaxy would grow to appreciate him. Many citizens that were suffering would soon see their planet begin to improve, as senators were forced to either truly work for their people or be executed for treason. And slowly, Dooku would form a new army of Force users, not exactly Sith or Jedi, but an army that worked for him, as clones would slowly be dying out. This new army would enforce the peace, occupying planets as a sort of vice senator, and reporting dealings of each senator back to Dooku. Skywalker and Kenobi would never join Dooku, but they would also not rebel against him. Instead, with the Jedi gone, they would see that the people were happier throughout the galaxy, and they would settle into their own lives, as Dooku would reign as Supreme Chancellor for many years. And folks, that is where our story ends today. I really wanted to take an approach with Dooku. I watched the Tales of the Jedi episodes last night with Dooku. Truly, I think those are some of the best episodes of Star Wars ever. Movies, TV shows, you name it, live action, whatever. Just Star Wars, period. I think it's some of the best. And I thought, hey, let's do this Dooku story. Now, there are two versions of Dooku, one in canon, one in Legends. In the Legends Revenge of the Sith novel, Dooku is more so shown to be a tyrannical, almost like dictator that really wants only humans to rule. Like, he just hates aliens and thinks that they should basically be eradicated from government completely, eradicated from ruling. That's in the Revenge of the Sith novel. Almost, literally Hitler-esque. But in canon, in Tales of the Jedi, we see him much more as a sympathetic person that goes after the human senators as well. Like, he really doesn't care who's ruling as long as they're good. And yeah, I wanted to take that path with Dooku instead of the super evil path, which, there are two for sure. The Legends one, he's just genuinely a horrible person, and I probably wouldn't have taken this path if I wanted to talk about that one, because I don't want that one winning. But this version, I wanted him to kind of show that sympathetic side and really rule over the galaxy with a Senate and, Senate that he eradicates corruption from, and a people that begin to trust him as he just gets more and more control. It was difficult. It's hard writing these stories in a way because, Dooku, he's an interesting character and he has a weird amount of control that's hard to analyze, but hope you guys enjoyed. Anyways, click the join button on the channel to support to get, more exclusive stuff if you want to do that. Link in the description for that. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought, and I'll see you in the next video.